are listening to Second Cut. Oh, I forgot to put in the fangs. This is the weekly podcast from the film magazine. No, wait, that doesn't work. This is the weekly podcast from thefilmmagazine.com, where we talk about topics in film theory and criticism through film reviews. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who forgot to put in his fangs.
I'm Sam. I'm the one who's frightened by spiders and ghosts, and spider ghosts.
Spider ghosts? Okay, and I'm Kieran. I'm the one who is not that scared and is probably a sociopath. Actually got called that by his lecturers once.
Oh, really? What did you do to bring on that comment?
He was having a conversation with a friend of mine who's a year above, or was a year above at the time, and he was complaining how he got everyone to read really dark stuff, and then everyone turned in really dark stories. And then he goes, my mate goes, "What about Kieran?" And the lecturer goes, "Don't think he's a psychopath. He might be a sociopath." So I wasn't even there. I just asked him like ages ago. I was like, "I'm a sociopath, all right?" It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm similarly unscared by most things, so the film that I picked, I mean, it's very real to my fears, and it's going to get dark here, guys.
Da-da-da-dun.
Yeah, but I guess before we get to that, we wanted to shout out a couple of our favorite listeners or supporters, or however we describe it. Holly on Twitter, she said that what scares her is Beau is Afraid, which I need to see. I'm disappointed in myself for not having done so yet. And we need to talk about Kevin, which is sort of in the vein of my movie. I definitely agree with her there. Also, my friend...
I still haven't seen it, but it's on the list.
It's definitely like real world anxiety is that one, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I've yet to see... Yeah, I've yet to see Beau is Afraid, but it's Ari Aster, and you know my opinions on Ari Aster, so I'm putting that one off.
Sam, did you see Beau is Afraid?
I did, and yeah, it's nice for Ari Aster to let us sit in on his very expensive therapy sessions. It's one of those. I'm pleased I've seen it. I can't say it wasn't interesting. I know there's a lot of like unnecessary discussion in the media at the minute about how long should a film be and can a film be too long and everything. But for me, Beau is Afraid was too long.
How long is it?
It's about 3 hours.
Yeah, that's not bad.
And you do, yeah, but for a psychological drama with like horror kind of elements, I don't know. Just you do feel like you've been on the same kind of epic kind of journey that he has. And it's like constant anxiety, like anxiety made flesh, basically. So it's a tiring film to watch as well. And it just goes weirder and weirder as it goes through. So yeah, it's interesting. But
my friend,
I still like that. I haven't seen it, but I still wish it was called. Is it Disappointment Boulevard?
Yeah, that was a better title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, some of our supporters, aka Sam's friends, have wondered if Kieran and I have any friends. Turns out I do have one. My friend Joseph. We were in a film club together in school, and he said Sinister is one that scares him. Ooh. And I like Sinister. I get that it's kind of tropey.
I have not seen Sinister. I mean, I found the trailer for it creepy enough, but no, I've never got around to that one.
I remember watching it, and as far as I remember, it's fairly well executed cliched for an hour and 40.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it.
It's Robert C. Cargill's first movie. I know he's done a couple of books, and he's a reviewer and a critic and everything like that. That's where he kind of started. And it's the kind of thing where it's fairly okay executed, but every second you've already seen.
Yeah. It's
one of those.
It's got some, kind of cool deaths in home movies, and that's like the craft and kind of thinking through what's going to be on those videos is probably the best part of it. Also, Ethan Hawke's not bad. So yeah, we're going to be talking about what scares us. But before we get into that, if you're not watching, you can go watch on YouTube. We have dressed up for the occasion somewhat. Kieran, who signed that hockey mask that you have on?
This was Sean Cunningham, who created Friday the 13th. And I got this from an off-site screening at Apertoire 2018, where we watched Friday the 13th, Part 3, in the old school 3D, red and blue glasses, in a massive bar out in the middle of nowhere, it's like one of the major locations in that movie, and it was great fun.
How does the yo-yo coming towards camera look in 3D? Does it actually work as an effect?
This is 80s 3D, so you kind of go, they were trying to do something, but it's one of those ones that you have to kind of go like that to go, it's coming up the screen. So it kind of, the 3D depends on what angle your head was at the moment. It's one of those.
Kieran, is Sean Cunningham the one who came up with the hockey mask, or was that someone later on, since it's in a later film?
Yeah, the hockey mask comes in Part 3. So the first one was Sean Cunningham. And the creation of it is hilarious. I think I've told it before. He was doing a film, was it Manny's Orphans or Manfred's Orphans or something like that? About kind of the orphanage that puts together the soccer team to beat the rich kids, essentially. Because he wasn't just a horror director. And he was trying to market it for ages. And he was like, he was sat at his kitchen table. Like, if I only had a movie called Friday the 13th, I could do something with that. And then years later, he had no film. So he remembered the title. And he put a big advert for Friday the 13th crashing through the glass, which is what you get at the beginning of the first film. The scariest film ever. He put it in as an advertisement for one of these big trade magazines going, look, if somebody's already got a film called Friday the 13th, but you couldn't look it up back then, if it was some really obscure one. If somebody's got one, they'll see it and they'll do it for copyright. And nobody did. So it's like, oh, crap, I better have to make a movie called Friday the 13th now, which is where he hired Victor Miller, and it's now why there's an awful lot of lawsuits behind the scenes and stuff like that. But yeah, so the first one has no Jason, pretty much. The second one has Jason in a burlap mask. The third one, which is still Steve Miner directing after the second one, they just kind of needed a mask because everyone was getting in on the mask game now. And they didn't have one. They tried to load, and I think it was one of the production assistants or something like that had just a hockey mask with him, and somebody went, "Hey, give that here, put it on." That works. So it's literally just an accident to use a hockey mask. But yeah, it's still signed by Sean Cunningham.
And Sam,
so that's my dress up.
Sam, who are you?
To start with, I was just wearing a Godzilla t-shirt, but I thought, well, since you two have made an effort, I ran upstairs and got my cheaper Beetlejuice outfit. So Beetlejuice minus the makeup and the wig, because I couldn't be bothered. So
it may just be a hoodie from 2010. We're not sure.
Or a dressing gown.
And I found this Twilight shirt at Walmart, and so
it's a proper polyester. It's proper polyester suit.
Wow,
that's good. Okay.
You know what? I take back what I said. I'm not advertising a superstore. I found this T-shirt at a store, and then found a $5 makeup and fake blood kit with these terrible fangs that don't fit in my mouth. And so I went with Twilight Vampire. I put a little sparkly highlighter on my face.
You look beautiful, mate.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do look particularly glittery tonight.
That's what I was going for.
Fabulous, I believe is the word.
All right. Well, let's start on something kind of upbeat. Sam, tell us about J-horror.
Well, before I get to J-horror, Kieran, do you want to have a rant about the term J-horror?
This is the Halloween version. So this is the After Dark. We're allowed post Watershed, right? No. It is a stupid term. I don't know who came up with it. Just okay, we're going to label everything. Shaun the Dead is part of B horror for British horror. We also have The Conjuring, which is part of A horror for American horror,
and Australian.
Yeah, so it should be US horror. Nobody calls it, it's a US horror movie or an American horror movie. It's just a horror movie. But as soon as we get to Japan, suddenly J-horror is now a thing. What?
Well,
are we going to put
and then,
Onibaba as J-horror? Nobody does. Just stupid.
And then obviously you do get, in music you get J-pop and K-pop. I mean, basically it's all branding, isn't it? It's all trying to, like a catch-all term, to kind of make it easier for ignorant Westerners to kind of categorize something and understand something. Yeah.
Sam, maybe you're about to get into this, but like the genre, like syntax and style and all that. Is there a particular J-horror theory that actually does separate it from U horror and B horror and the other nationalities?
I'm from Wales. Do we have W horror?
W horror. Yes, that would be the Walesing.
I mean, nothing kind of unifying, but I think if you watch enough of them, there are certain kind of stylistic differences, which I think you can be grossly generalized. You can kind of separate them stylistically, I suppose, or the kind of the tropes used in kind of on both continents. But I mean, the film I've chosen basically, so the film that scares me the most is Ju-On, the first big budget Grudge film, or Japanese Grudge film, because they had done like a couple of low budget direct to TV films and some short films. Kieran, have you read the books these are based on?
I didn't realize Ju-On was based on the books. I've read the original three Ring books, and I have read the original book for Audition.
Yeah, okay.
Which somehow, you know how normally like the film is not as mad as the book. It's the opposite.
Did Takashi Miike actually tone down some stuff? Wow.
No, he upped it.
Oh,
that's
right,
what
okay.
I'm saying.
Oh, right, okay.
I think the film is more disturbing than the book, and it's as a book person, it's not often I say that. Exactly what happens, especially at the end, the stuff for Audition is more violent and gruesome, I think, in the film version. But welcome to Takashi Miike.
Yeah. But yeah, it's also one of like the biggest Japanese horror franchises. It's currently comprised of 13 films, I think. Well, Japanese films anyway, and then obviously you've got all the American remakes after that. But basically, something about kind of the combination of like a really mundane domestic setting and like a steadily kind of building sense of dread, and there's some really kind of uncanny visuals, and especially like this creepy sound design kind of just gets under my skin on like some kind of fundamental level. I think just to generalize, kind of again, gross generalization again, I think I'm going to use J-horror, even though it's an ignorant Western term, but it is commonly used term, so I'm going to stick to it. But like, the big J-horror films, kind of broke through in like the late 90s, early 2000s. They're not generally reliant on like really extreme gore or jump scares. It's a more gradual thing, and more, like I said, more mundane thing, except for when you do finally get like a real scary image, it's a properly disturbing, just horrible kind of image. It's like in The Grudge, probably the most famous kind of scary kind of sequence from that is seeing Kyako dragging herself down the stairs, towards the victim. It's kind of the way she kind of dislocates and just the movie is just really kind of off somehow. But the one that really gets me, I think, is earlier in the film where she's kind of chasing after one of the victims at her office, and kind of, I think she's chasing her into the bathroom, and you hear her before you see her, and there's this horrible kind of creaking kind of death rattle that kind of you hear before you see like this this hair kind of come around the corner and stuff. It's just something fundamental about it, kind of really kind of upsets me. It's like, and I could rationalize, I know I could be killed by a serial killer, I could be kidnapped and tortured, all this kind of stuff, but I'm not going to be killed, scared to death by a ghost. But the idea that in the dark corner of my bedroom I just see this kind of long-haired image, kind of figure just kind of shuffling towards me all of a sudden, I don't think I could. I don't think anything would kind of make me soil myself faster, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the whole stuff with that, it goes through a long line back in history of essentially these ghost stories. And Kaidan, I believe they're called in Japan, and even with Ring, the woman in the well is based off a traditional Japanese folk legend and stuff like that. These are kind of tried and tested tropes. This is the equivalent of a kind of Gothic mansion for Britain. It's their version of it.
I'm watching that staircase scene right now, and I could have done this makeup if I had just taken a little more time.
Oh yeah, I mean, they were cheap movies, especially the first few. They were obviously massive hits, but quite low budget. I mean, I've never seen the ones made a few years before. The direct-to-TV ones. I
think I've seen the first one back in the day. Yeah. I can't remember much about it.
I mean, that's basically exactly the same plot as the first mate as Ju-on, isn't it? I think it's just done.
It's got the kind of disjointed narrative.
Because obviously it's non-linear as well, the storytelling, and you gradually have to put the pieces together. I mean, a bit like Ring in that sense. And this is my little rant. I'm not going to call it Ringu. It's not Ringu. It's Ring. All Westerners say Ringu. You just basically put on a bad Japanese accent. And you're saying Ring. Basically, that's just the Japanese inflection. But it's Ring. All right.
Is that not the anglicization of the title?
I would point out my translated copy of the original book comes out as Ring. So it's Ring on my bookshelf. So yeah. I think the only reason to pronounce it Ringu would be to differentiate it from the Ring.
Yeah.
Oh, I do see. It is Ring. Although the transliterated, like, anglicized Japanese does say Ringu.
Yeah. But, briefly kind of looking at, like, obviously Japanese cinema, there's a long history of kind of, of horror films. Obviously, it's a country, with like a lot of trauma in its past. Particularly, obviously, World War II. It's kind of, I suppose, for a long time, for decades following the atomic bombing. It was kind of a way for them to kind of process these kind of traumas. Particularly with the kaiju film, especially Godzilla. I mean, he's a walking atomic bomb allegory. So that was like the kind of. When kind of Japanese kind of genre kind of cinema really took off with Godzilla and other kind of kaiju series, and then following that, as you mentioned, Kieran, you have Onibaba, which is debatably a horror. I mean, it's sort of like folk horror, I suppose. It's essentially it's like a historical drama, but with some kind of weird stuff kind of thrown in towards the end.
As a demon in the last 20 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of very, very easy to interpret it as just being in the character's head. It's not actually there. It's just, but then like after that you had Kwaidan, which I haven't actually seen, but that's an anthology film, and it's all based on like Japanese folk stories. Again, looking back to their past and kind of retelling these kind of tried and tested kind of tales. Really, it was kind of in the kind of the 80s into 90s really that things really started to take off, and I think the country cemented like a particular style that they went to time and time again. Again, it is looking back, it is using like folk stories and kind of it's kind of like stories around the fire, isn't it? It's like kind of things passed down, but kind of modernising them. So you have all the supernatural ones. You have Ring, Grudge, Darkwater. Then you have like more kind of technological kind of paranoia kind of films, like Tetsuo and Pulse and things like that. One Missed Call, yeah. I mean, one director I will say, because the Grudge series is on the Ju-on series anyway. It's that was masterminded by Katashi Shimizu, who was one of the proteges of Kiyoshi Kurosawa, who was probably like the guy in Japanese horror in the 90s. And he kind of helped break the country through, because I think he did. Now, which one he did? He did Pulse, I think. About looking up,
rings a bell, yes.
Yeah, but before that he did Cure, and more recently he did a really good film which I watched this month, actually, called Creepy.
Creepy is good, actually.
Yeah, all of his films, they're very kind of set in that very kind of domestic, mundane setting, but with like a really dark undercurrent that gradually kind of works its way out. So I think Japan as a society, it's very. I think that they're known for being obviously traditional and for doing things according to procedure and respect and routine and ritual. And I think anything that kind of breaks out of that mold and kind of anything kind of working its way out of that kind of formalism kind of is presented as like something quite something to be feared, something to be kind of rejected, I suppose. I mean, the success of like films like Grudge and Ring obviously kickstarted all the generally terrible English language remakes in the States of the following years. Which I always find fascinating that like the Japanese directors went over and had a hand in those, because basically, would you like to do that again? But dumb it down a bit, and we'll give you we'll give you a slightly bigger budget, because Shimizu, he did the
Sarah Michelle Gellar remake,
Yes, so we did both get the Grudge and Grudge 2 in the States. Gore Verbinski did the Ring remake, but then the director of the Ring did the sequel to that. So he did the second American film. It's just, I mean, you can't blame them, can you? You take that paycheck, and it's just.
Yeah.
But for a long time, for years, that was the way kind of early 2000s. Early mid 2000s, that was like the way kind of American films were going. It's like, right, we're sort of out of ideas, so let's see what those guys in East Asia are up to. Ooh, we could probably have a go at that.
Is there a vaguely successful, as I call them, creepy Asian ghost girl movie? We'll just rip that off.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they remade Shutter, they remade The Eye, they just did everything, and it's slightly distressing.
I will give the Columbia or whoever produced it credit for hiring the same guy to say, "Hey, you want to make that again, but with more money." I mean, you could do worse.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And make it so as dumb Westerners can understand.
And obviously, on the back of like all these like successful J horrors, like even before it got to the States, other countries, had their own kind of mini horror booms. Thailand and Hong Kong and Korea. They're all kind of, and again, obviously, each nation kind of has a very distinct kind of feel to their films and aesthetic and tropes that they lean into. But I think arguably none of them would have broken through. Well, they would have been done fine in their own countries, but they would never broke through in the West without like the J horror boom of the early 2000s, I'd argue.
And Grudge is a really interesting one because all these films, they're kind of well known for, or kind of well regarded as being kind of creepy and atmospheric, and they build up the tension. And yet Shimizu himself has said that along with all these, for Ju-on, he was very much also inspired by slashers like Jason and Freddy, which is why The Grudge is like slow, whack. 10 minutes later, slow, whack. There's enough kind of gut punches in there. It's not like Ring where it just keeps going. Yeah. And then at the end, there's a spike. It straddles that line really well.
That's the thing. I mean, they're both essentially mysteries, aren't they? You kind of get to the bottom exactly what happened to these people and why they're taking supernatural revenge, essentially. But Ring is basically a police procedural kind of, and as you say, it all just comes like right in the last 10 minutes. But this is obviously, it's like all different inhabitants of the house kind of shown non-chronological order, and trying to assemble the puzzle pieces and work out like exactly what happened to who.
It is quite funny as well if you watch the sequels, especially for Ring. That I watched all of them before watching Sadako versus Kayako, because that was me.
Okay.
They start off like very kind of atmospheric, and thankfully they veer off from what the novels did, because the novels just go out there, and eventually I think he just had novels lying around that he repurposed. And they eventually just went, everyone wants to see creepy Asian ghost girl, so that's what we're going to do. And eventually, like Sadako 3D, I think they did like Sadako 3D 2 or something like that. It is just Sadako jump scare, no build up. And then obviously Sadako versus Kayako. There's no suspense there at all. It is not a great movie. There is literally a line where they go, you know what we need to do? Make two ghost girls have a fight against each other. I'm not far off the exact line. And
is it like Freddy versus Jason? It's like a hell of a big build up to a pretty uninspiring kind of fight.
Yeah. There is one moment where you get Kayako crawling down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs they've got the tape and Sadako crawling out of it, and that's what you want. And they did at the end a big thing where they merged together into one big evil spirit and lunge out of the well and go rah at the screen, cut to black. They've never done a sequel, so thank God. But yeah, it's not great, but with I saw it at Abattoir, they had it as a midnight screening, and with a name that is Sadako versus Kayako. It could have just been then for 2 hours going at each other, and I would have loved it. Because it's just stupid in every way, and they needed to get the money.
Yeah. I mean, what I will say about The Grudge is that it does terrify me, and it's I really struggle to kind of get through it. But I accept it's like a great horror film. It's probably one of the best I've seen. But it just really does kind of get under my skin and just it's one of those struggle to get the imagery out of my head after seeing it. But like all kind of really good ghost stories, it's also it's a profoundly sad one. It's tragic. The story. It's like as you kind of peel back the layers and gradually realize exactly kind of what occurs and everything. Just the idea that anyone's kind of death is just so horrible and traumatic that that it creates it's literally the curse kind of jumps onto anyone who enters the place where the events happens. It's like the pain is carried on and passed on for subsequent generations. It's a very kind of human and kind of sympathetic kind of story towards the victims. If they do become like these horrible spectres who kill more people out of their pain.
And I think definitely it does show what you can do with an animal noise and how scary that could be.
Yeah,
because a cat meowing.
Yeah,
this film makes it terrifying. New York Ripper makes a duck the most hilarious thing in existence. So that's like the only thing I like.
Yeah,
being against a horror movie and suddenly going meow is the most terrifying thing in existence.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think a lot of these Japanese films they do use sound just so well, probably a lot better than American horror films, which will that classic, just loud noise and then jump scare. It's like, and it's actually not even like a noise created within the world of the film. It's on the soundtrack. It's just to jolt you, with the image. Whereas, again, Japanese films goes back to this this slow build and gradual kind of crawling under your skin. Just that noise. It's just I can't quite place it. And it does, and it doesn't seem right, and especially not in this location. It's just it's kind of warning you something's coming, but it just trips something like your subconscious. It's
again with the caveats that some films are different. Tokyo Gore Police, which is exactly what it sounds like. It has no suspense at all. It's just somebody's lower half of their body is just a giant pair of jaws.
So Sam.
Or Versus, which is a horror film, but it's essentially Yakuza versus zombies, and then the final act it turns into Japanese Highlander. It's just.
So Sam, would you say that the visual and sound aspects of the filmmaking are what scare you more than maybe the story itself?
Yeah, I mean, the stories just make me sad generally. It's not necessarily like the idea of kind of what's been kind of put together. I mean, I'm generally interested to get to the bottom of these mysteries, and when it is revealed kind of exactly what these people have been put through, I'm like, oh that's terrible. But it's more a kind of visceral reaction to stimuli, to sound and visuals really. And just stuff that just generally doesn't look right. It seems out of place. It's like the ultimate expression of the uncanny for me. These are J horror kind of aesthetics, I think.
So would you say better or worse than the 2019 John Cho version produced by Sam Raimi?
I have not seen any of the American remakes.
Bummer. You should at least watch that one.
I know.
Sam Raimi was offered a ton of money and he said yes.
To put his name on it.
I have seen whichever scary movie references The Ring. Is that?
I think it's the third one.
Third one, yeah.
Nice.
That's what you mean.
But no, that's the closest I've come to the American remake. So I just don't want to put myself through that particularly.
It won't be scary, at least.
That's true. All right, Kieran, what film are you talking about? I forgot.
Well, I had to think, because I'm not massively scared by films we discussed in the beginning. I've just seen that much. I'm not desensitized, but I've gone for a different film than bits I remember, because I had an option of three. The first one that kind of got me in any way was not even a full film. I saw the opening to Texas Chainsaw 2. And it's if you haven't seen it, essentially somebody's driving along and another car pulls up and Leatherface is on top of the car with a cord strapped to him, and he's got the chainsaw and he's attacking it. It's like a car duel. And it was just the way the body kind of jangled on Leatherface, which got the rest of the movie I can remember almost nothing about, other than Men, Women, and Chainsaws goes very much in depth to it, and there's a chainsaw sword fight near the end. That's pretty much all I remember. And I didn't really want to discuss the whole movie just for that intro.
But by the way, did we all go through an extreme horror phase?
Not really.
Sam?
In terms of watching extreme horror films?
Yeah, mainly, I guess, the French ones, Martyrs and Inside.
Only at university, and it was actually those two. I've seen those. I thought, yeah, I get this. I don't really need to see anymore.
Yeah. It's like, I've seen Martyrs, I've seen Saw, I haven't seen Hostel. No. I haven't gone down the kind of extreme splatter route.
Okay, just me
Martyrs, then. Which is okay until the ending, which is the most philosophically just jarring ending ever, which I love. But aside from that, no.
By the way, sorry to sidetrack, but do you get so Kieran, you mentioned your early Texas Chainsaw?
I hadn't even seen the first one at that point. I thought it was the first one. This is very early days.
My formative horror experience, it's just come to me actually, was The Shining, but it wasn't watching the full film. This was probably when I was about 10, and it terrified me back then because it's not like my dad put the film on or anything. No, it was just, this is in Twister. There's a scene in Twister.
Oh yeah.
They go past a drive-through and they're playing The Shining, and it's the corridor scene with the twins, and it's like all of a sudden you're just playing this sequence from The Shining right in the middle of this just
fun fact. I think that
disaster
actual
movie.
Cinema screen in later years was actually destroyed by a tornado.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it was one of those. Yeah. So I thought about doing that, and then the other one that I had a reaction to was already done, which is Event Horizon. And that wasn't really the film itself. Well, it was, but it was a midnight screening at Abattoir, and I'd already seen the film, and I want to see it back again on a big screen. So I've seen it 3 times. I saw it before, that I really liked. I saw it then, and it got to me. And I don't know if it was just the time of day, it was tired, it was the experience itself. And then the third time I watched it for the podcast, I went, this actually doesn't get to me at all. But I still have that memory of it affect me, just literally just for the context. I don't know what it was, but, all films are, incredibly relevant depending on what we had to dinner that day. It's part of a package deal. But the one that I can remember most recently, kind of me going, this is actually giving me a bit of the chills. This was a couple of years ago, and it's The Innocents, the 1961 Jack Clayton adaptation of The Turn of the Screw. And actually thinking about it, I should probably take this off because I don't know how badly it's messing up the mic. I was going to say, it could be that nobody understands a single word I've been saying. But I've still got my Scream t-shirt on, so that'll do.
Kieran, that's the one with Finn Wolfhard, right?
Please do not mention that. It is the one that got turned into The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is the inferior one of the two. I've yet to see House of Usher. So nobody say anything, although I've obviously read the book, and I've got a signed copy of the Vincent Price one, signed by Victoria Price. But anyway, The Innocents, based on The Turn of the Screw, very much gothic, proper British gothic horror, 1961, haunted house stuff. With Deborah Kerr in it, and it's then Michael Redgrave has a cameo at the beginning as well. And it's also got, I think it's Martin Stevens, who is the child actor who plays Miles in it, who was also the main kid in Village of the Damned as well. So when I watched Village of the Damned, I'm like, oh my God, that's the same kid. And I think he stopped acting like the year after this and has never gone back to it, which is kind of a shame, I think, because well, it's a shame in that he didn't go on to keep acting. But at the same time, it's just he'll eternally be this 12-year-old really English kid, which is all I have in my head now. But he puts in a really good performance, and the whole thing is based on is it real, is it not? It's constantly framed that it's always a possibility that it's in the main character's head. Miss Giddens, played by Deborah Kerr. And it is really nicely directed. It is beautifully kind of precise direction. There's lots of fluid camera movements. There's lots of space. There's a really nice kind of 24, 25-minute documentary that went at the beginning of some of the DVD releases with Christopher Frayling, who's now a Sir, I think it is, discussing the making of the film.
I've seen Christopher Frayling give an introduction to a film last year. I think he introduced the screening of Charge with Light Brigade, a film festival last year.
Oh, yeah, I have to put my English students through that when they're doing the poem for GCSE. It's really not fun. So yeah, it's really wonderfully directed. There's a lot of use because it's in widescreen CinemaScope. Apparently, it's very well known at the time that it's very hard to get depth. So quite often there'd be a character in the foreground and one at the background, just to try and create that sense of depth, and a lot of movement back and forth between the two. And it just builds and builds, and it creates this really kind of slightly eerie atmosphere. And I mean, the first time you see the character of Miss Jezzel, Deborah Kerr is going down with the little girl Flora to this sort of it's before with the summer house. I think Deborah Kerr is just there on her own, and she looks across kind of this river. And over there in the reeds, there's just the figure of Miss Jezzel just all in black. And it's kind of jump scare-ish, but it's not. It's chilling because it's done in such a way that it holds, as I think Christopher Frayling says in the introduction, a lot of the time when you do these kind of jump scares, you have the scare and then you see somebody's reaction.
Yeah. This
is done the other way around. You see Deborah Kerr see something, and it holds there for a good few seconds, so that everyone understands something is coming and then cuts to it. So we're almost kind of primed to know that something is wrong when we see it. And then you get this image, and it's just the way that's done and the timing of it. I mean, I've written film scripts that have never made it to where and set up kind of appearances of kind of the antagonist in a similar sort of way. And actually, I think Halloween 2018 does something similar when the character who I can't remember the name of that gets killed in trying to climb over the railings. That was the main character who I've completely forgotten because I tried to blank those movies out of my head. Her friend who they try to make a move on her at the Halloween party and goes off on his own and gets drunk in somebody's lawn. You get a bit where he kind of looks up and kind of looks, oh, hey, you over there. And then you see Michael standing there. And it's almost an exact kind of replica of the setup for that. And it's just a beautiful moment in this really stark kind of gothic black and white. But then my favorite sequence, just to come on to I think one of the best sequences, there's a scene 2/3 of the way through the movie where Deborah Kerr's kind of, everyone's in bed and she's kind of walking around famously with this big candelabra of these burning candles kind of going around. This good 4 or 5 minute sequence, pretty much of all noise and just atmosphere and direction of her walking around going, what the hell's going on? And it was then that I was watching it. I mean, this is broad daylight, I was sat there at university watching it on my laptop going, okay, I am actually getting slight chills from this, purely because the direction is so good, the cinematography is amazing. And there's a really nice kind of moment where she's kind of looking around everywhere, and they decide to do a straight top-down God's eye shot as well. So you just see the top of her head just spinning in panic. It's almost kind of it's not Saw where they have that 360 for the reverse bear trap, but there's that momentum feeling, and it's such a disorienting shot suddenly to go straight down, kind of like voyeuristically. It's just really nicely shot, really beautiful, really just well built example of classic ghost story horror. And I mean, this Return of the Screw is one of the best ghost stories ever written. And it's a beautiful adaptation of it.
And two of the creepiest movie kids ever as well.
Oh yeah, like they pull it off so well, and it's just apparently the kids, Jack Clayton, tried not to let on that it was a horror movie, so they never got the script in full. Apparently, they were given next day's pages one at a time to try and lessen it as much. And in a similar way to The Shining, actually, where it's Danny Lloyd, isn't it? Plays Danny Torrance.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember the second name because it's the same first name. Wasn't told that it's a horror movie until like a decade later when he was finally old enough to watch The Shining. So to get that out of them when like they don't kind of know what they're acting or the context of it is really good. And I think a lot of it is the direction and the work of Deborah Kerr, who's entirely underappreciated. And I think this movie's kind of slipped under the radar a bit because when you think of 60s black and white ghost story adaptations, everyone goes to The Haunting, which admittedly is incredible in itself, but I would take The Innocent slightly higher, which may be a controversial opinion, but I will take The Innocents every day. And now that I think about it, I'm very upset it's not on any of my TFM lists. But I only had a certain amount of slots, so...
Well, you can make like a 60s best horror movies if you haven't done that yet.
I was going to say, let's put Eyes Without Face on it. Let's put Carnival of Souls in there, you know. Yeah. Let's run it like that.
60s was a great decade for horror.
I realized I saw too many 2020 movies. The Turning was also a 2020 horror movie. Well, I guess the Grudge 5 or whatever wasn't a remake, but just too many adaptations of better movies in 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
All American.
Kieran, do you have anything else on The Innocents?
I could go on for years and just going how great it is, but at the same time, I am known for going off on rants and tangents. So I should. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It is the.
I know you said, Kieran, you're you don't really get scared by horror in general. I mean, is Innocence one of them that does kind of chill you a little bit? You know, that kind of
not now.
No, but it did when you.
Yeah, and I think it was not scared, but this is effective.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Now I've seen it sort of 6 or 7 times, so like I can it doesn't affect me in the same way. And to be honest, I don't think there are films that I watch multiple times and it gets me. If they did the first time, but it is one of the ones most recently that I can remember going, this is effectively doing what it is doing. Even if it was only a kind of slight shudder of, ooh, it's getting a little tingly here. There's never been one where I've kind of seen it, the full film, and been afraid to turn out the lights or something like that. But maybe I am a sociopath. Who knows?
Yeah.
Welcome to my world, child.
Kieran, we're on the same page there. I'm not scared by horror movies. Sam touched on this a little bit for himself too, but like ghosts and monsters, demons. I mean, I don't believe in that stuff, so it doesn't really scare me.
I will put the caveat now that I think I've done it before. A horror movie does not need to be scary to be good.
Yep. Otherwise, I wouldn't like any horror movies.
Yeah, because they're all awful. So I think this is something that a lot of people, especially if they're not kind of haven't done like the academic route, or they're not properly into kind of studying film as cinema, if that makes sense, being pretentious about it. A lot of times you'll go, oh, it wasn't great, I wasn't scared by it. As if that's the measure of it. Like, nobody's scared by Frankenstein, 31 James Whale movie anymore. It's still bloody amazing. Like, it's just like, unfortunately, comedy doesn't have the same out.
Yeah, literally, if you did not laugh at the comedy, it has failed as a comedy.
Yeah, because I think the thing with comedy is its point is to entertain in that way. It may have some themes under very deep under it, but 90% of comedy movies are to entertain and to elicit a laugh and enjoyment in that sense. Horror has the ability, I think, to. It is a lot of the time it is a presentation of dark ideas and dark themes, and it's all these things together, which they can be creepy, but you can also appreciate it without getting creeped out about it because it is discussion, themes, and ideas and story, rather than just trying to set up gags. Which I'm not saying that all comedy is like that, but a decent amount of it is essentially setting up gags. So horror does not need to scare you to be a good film. This is Kieran Judge signing out.
Yeah, I think it needs to, if it's going to create horror imagery, it just needs to do that well and in a way that's interesting. And like, even if it doesn't, spook me, it does something that I go, oh, okay. I like that. It didn't work on me. I'm not scared by, ooh, sudden loud noise, boo. That's startling me. If anything, it's not scaring me. I do think there has to be something visceral to fear, though. Something real, something honest. I think that's why a lot of people were scared by it. They watched the TV version as a kid. They just kind of saw it. I think, Sam, whatever you were talking about, The Shining, you saw that little bit in Twister. For me, that was Red Dragon, and I was going to talk about that. The glass in the eyes, gluing Philip Seymour Hoffman to a wheelchair, biting off his lips, setting him on fire. I don't know why I saw that as a kid, but I did.
You have awful parents. That's why. Or
great parents, if you think about it.
I mean, making you watch a Brett Ratner film at that age.
And looking back, though, that's a fantastic cast. I rewatched it recently, and it's so good. And then another one that I vaguely remember, kind of scaring me a little. No, sorry, this isn't from my childhood. I didn't watch a lot of horror movies until I was a teenager, and then I was laughing at them. So, when I saw Hereditary and the girl's head gets knocked off, that was a really visceral fear for me because that can happen. We can be wasted driving home, being stupid, and somebody leans their head out of the car and it gets knocked off. I wouldn't drive intoxicated, but that is a fear of something that could really happen, and it scares me. It scared me in the moment. So when I really started thinking about what scares me, it's definitely existential dread. So I picked Melancholia from Lars von Trier, which is not a scary movie, but the ideas in it are pretty scary. He's doing a disaster movie without the disaster elements. It's mostly just a bunch of depressed people sitting around talking. I think if most people watched it, they'd go, this is really boring, and give up on it, especially if it was sold as a horror film.
It's a film about you can still be gaslit as a woman, even if what you're saying is going to happen will definitely be happening because there's a big bloody planet in the sky.
Yeah. So I do want to preface this by saying Lars von Trier sucks as a person. He sexually harassed Bjork. He has anti-Semitic comments on the record. The dude sucks, okay? And him as an artist is ultimately inseparable from him as a person. But him as an artist is really good. He creates things that speak to something true about the human condition. And he cares about film aesthetics to the point of helping create an entire doctrine for a film group dedicated to naturalism within film. So I respect him in that sense, but he's a terrible person, terrible human being. Sorry, I'm now going to go on and talk about how amazing his film is. Quick plot summary. There's a big bloody planet in the sky. It starts at there's a large opening sequence that's a dream about the end of the world. And then there's a wedding, and it's Kirsten Dunst. She plays Justine. She's getting married to one of the Skarsgårds. I can't remember which one. Let's see.
Alexander, I think.
It's not Stellan Skarsgård, so
it is. Yeah, that's her boss. Might be his dad. Oh, I think it's maybe Alexander.
Yeah. It's the one who was in True Blood.
Yes. Okay. So Alexander Skarsgård's her husband. He's pretty much irrelevant to the movie, even though he's in half of it. So Kirsten Dunst plays Justine. She's getting married. Her sister Claire is played by Charlotte Gainsborough, and it's about the two of them. Claire's husband is Kiefer Sutherland, and that's all I'm going to call him because I don't know his name. And so the opening part is it's a big wedding, but everything's kind of going wrong. They get lost on the way there. She is just very depressed throughout. She gets a promotion and then she goes and hides away, and she cheats on her brand new husband with a guy in a sand trap on a golf course. And then she quits her job too. That's the other thing that happens. And so it's all very, I would say, real to the idea of like a depressed person's, irrational actions, very, very spur of the moment. Lars von Trier developed the film while he was in therapy for depression. And some of the things that he discussed helped him come up with this script, along with, it was going to star Penelope Cruz. She sent him a play. I can't remember the name. It's about maids. They kill the person in charge of them. He took those characters and kind of changed everything, literally everything. And she was going to play it, but scheduling conflicts got in the way. So Kirsten Dunst was chosen. By the way, Charlotte Gainsborough does have an accent. So I don't know if that's purposeful, if her character grew up in England. I have no idea.
Fun fact, she's so it's actually Gasbourg is how you pronounce it, because she is the daughter of Serge Gainsbourg, who was a big French singer.
Does she have a brother named Rafe? There we go.
Should do, shouldn't she?
Gainsbourg.
Yes. Gainsbourg. Yeah.
Well,
isn't he the bad guy in Beauty and the Beast?
Well, there we go.
Yeah.
That's your fun fact about.
Anyway, yeah, she sometimes sounds more French and sometimes sounds more English. Depends on what mode she's in, I think.
You know what? That would explain all the French movies in her filmography. I just saw she was born in London and she had a British accent in the movie. So, I mean, look, it doesn't matter. I think that has to do with like his background in naturalism. The entire thing is improvised. Like they just go in and act, and he tells them, I guess kind of gives them direction and they go. And on that level, it's very impressive performances, because I didn't know that when I was watching. I assumed there was a script. So she gets married, cheats on the husband, quits her job, very depressed. Second part of the movie is from Claire's perspective. And so Justine is having severe depression, laying in bed, not eating, and she starts learning about the planet passing by them. They can see it in the sky. It blocks out a bright star in Scorpio. That's a big red star. And she begins to develop anxiety about it. And Sam alluded to this. Kiefer Sutherland's like, no, it's fine. The scientists, they're doing the math. It's not going to kill us. But she is having a straight up panic attack for pretty much the entire second half of the film. Sorry, they have a kid as well. So that kind of amps up their little family drama, And then finally, Kiefer Sutherland, he realizes what's happening, I guess kind of off-screenish, and overdoses on pills, killing himself. And the kid and the two sisters, they go sit in a magic cave made of sticks and watch as the planet collides into Earth. And it's pretty awesome. Definitely takes out some of the distaste for effects that the Dogma 95 group had. Very heavy on those in this movie, but I guess it is necessary, so I'll give him a pass. The lighting looks natural throughout. It's diegetic sound outside of the one big music piece in it. I would say as like a kind of big sci-fi-ish existential film. It is pretty light on the effects and sets and things like that. It just kind of looks like it's taking place in a castle, even if it isn't.
I think not coincidentally, but interestingly, about a decade before that, the other Dogma 95 founder, Thomas Vinterberg, did a quite similar film. It's like a sci-fi with effects and film stars and everything, but used the special effects kind of sparingly. That was It's All About Love with Joaquin Phoenix and Claire Danes. It's like a big romance set in the near future. So basically, probably as soon as they got out of the 1990s, really, I think both of them basically said, we're going to start using effects.
Once they got a little bit of budget.
Yeah, we're not that committed to our ideals.
Yeah, I do like that the ideals were adapted to larger budget film. Especially, 2011 Avengers came out. I mean, it's such a stark contrast to...
Avengers 2012.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, a year, whatever. There were Marvel things. So I picked this movie because I really identified with the character of Justine and her outlook on life throughout the film. So I've dealt with depression myself. And one thing Lars von Trier mentioned his therapist said was that people who are depressed are calm in really terrible situations. And so that's reflected in Justine's character. She is calm as the planet is about to collide with Earth. She has a very nihilistic view of the world that I happen to share. She says the Earth is evil. It'll be better off when humans die. I mean, I don't know if this is an allegory for climate change. I don't think it is. But, an impending climate crisis is pretty top of my list of existential anxieties. I'm not looking forward to changing weather patterns and having to migrate away from coastal areas and water crisis and anything like that. But she's very accepting of it. And I feel that in myself as well. If I lost the things that sort of give me meaning in life, the people around me, ultimately, I'd just kind of be accepting of death. And I've accepted that and sort of long for the release from the burden that is life. But to get more to the positive side of that, the existential philosopher Soren Kierkegaard, he had some answers to that. Now, I know this isn't film, but I mean, this is what the film made me think about, and these are the things that have helped me deal with existential fear. He talked about coping with the aesthetic dimension of life. He used the word despair, I think. The aesthetic dimension is like hedonism, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. The ethical dimension, which is trying to live a virtuous life, do the right thing. I'm sure for him that's in like a Christian lens. That's probably the church-going Christians that he discussed in his writing. And then his final stage, the maybe correct stage, I'm simplifying everything here, but the leap into faith, which is putting your faith in God, being in a personal relationship with God, that aspect of Christianity. I don't believe in supernatural things. I don't believe in a God. So where does that leave me? And for me, where I find transcendence is in art. I don't create much of it. I mainly do analytical, direct writing. I don't do a lot of artistic output, but watching and interacting with art, doing something like this, I think that's really where I find that sort of transcendental place within a more naturalistic, humanistic outlook on the world. And I think one thing I really appreciated about this movie artistically is that it is sort of a callback to the Romantic period of art. I went and looked at some paintings from, I guess the 19th century. There's the one of like the guy on the cliffs His back's to the audience. It's very famous. I can't think of what it is. I could look it up and show it on camera, but I won't right now. And he's a black figure on a rock and just looking out into the endless, fog-covered, scenic view in front of him. And it sort of puts into context, like, I looked at a bunch of other paintings from some other guy where humanity was more insignificant than that. But I think that painting still puts into context the vastness outside of humanity. And there's sort of a sense of awe for those things that are greater than us. And
Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog by Caspar David Friedrich?
Yes, that is the one.
1818.
Yes.
Very good.
After I finish talking, I'll look it up and put it on here. But the planet in the film, it looms so big on the horizon, and the people are so insignificant in those shots where it's just hanging like that. It looks like those dope old paintings, and it's translated to film, modernized through the medium, and just really gives interesting visual. I don't quite know the word. Visual, I don't know, elements, something like that. It's cool to look at. I like it a lot. And so his adapting of more classical things, the ideas within it, I really appreciate that aspect of it. And, the fact that I also find the themes within it horrifying, that was a bonus for this show, because if I didn't do this, I was going to do Enter the Void. And I think that movie's way more depressing, despite being way more colorful. So, yes, that is my bit on Melancholia. It left me feeling pretty good.
If
and
nothing
on
else,
that bombshell.
if nothing else, this little chat's made me think I really need to revisit both of your films, because I remember loving them both. But I've not seen either of them probably since university, so for at least a decade. So I need to go back to them, definitely.
And it's not the same film, but now I remember how slightly disturbed I was after watching Requiem for a Dream for the first time. Because that is one that you just go, you feel unclean after watching it. It's one of those.
Requiem for a Dream was also on the list of things I was considering.
If I'd thought about it, I might have done it, but I'm like, horror, okay.
Yeah. But one of those films you absolutely cannot wait to never watch again, as great as it is.
And I think one of the most depressing films I've ever seen, even though it is amazing, is Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, God, yeah.
That was also on the list. But, Kieran, you talk about it a lot, and so I figured if we ever do it, you would want to do it.
I mean, I did the asylum scene for an assignment at university, so... I do like it.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess that's it. We did this in basically an hour. So good job, guys.
We should finish off very quickly. What's your favorite scary movie? Which is on the t-shirt.
I mean, I put it in my top 10. It's The Shining. I really love it. It's a good movie. And fits the horror genre.
So it depends entirely on whether you consider Silence of the Lambs a scary movie or not.
Yes.
That's in my top 10. If you go pure horror, I'd say The Shining, but Silence of the Lambs is in my top 10, and I consider it at least horror adjacent. So, yeah, I'll say Silence of the Lambs.
And I will be incredibly boring and say The Shining. But if I'm going for one that nobody else has said, then next on the ranking is The Wailing. So there we go. I think that's what the viewers came for. We probably should have started with that, but we've at least finished with it. Okay,
if I'm going to go non-The Shining, I think it is... Oh, gosh. I don't even know. The Exorcist. That's probably it. I love The Priest.
We'll take it.
Yeah.
Oh, please just have the original Exorcist in your head. Don't bother with a new one.
I did plan to.
I did bother with it. Although I didn't watch it, I just listened to it and had the things relayed to me as I sat over here playing video games.
Yeah, I tell you what. Instead, anyone that hasn't, I know I went on the rant before, but if you haven't seen The Exorcist Believer, just watch Mark Kermode's rant on it. It's much better.
Yes. Also, it does have the mom from the other one, because you can't make a remake horror movie without bringing back an old person that was in the original.
Yeah, apparently the only reason she did that was so that she could like fund other people's like college stuff and put it towards like scholarship grants that she was like working on.
Oh, that's the reason
she did it.
Ellen Burstyn is good people. Definitely.
Yeah. It's a bit like why Betsy Palmer was in the original Friday the 13th, because her car needed to be repaired. That's it. It's quite... Anyway.
Yep. All right. Well, I guess that will be it. So if you listen to this and you didn't already, send us what scares you, and we will read it next time.
Drop it in the comments.
Yeah, drop it in the comment. Like, subscribe. I don't know, whatever else you're supposed to say.
Comment, rate, subscribe.
But before we go, everyone, where can people find you online?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine. Check out my Disney Villains ranking. And by tomorrow, I think, there'll be a new Halloween-y piece from me as well, where I've compared the different versions of House of Wax over the years. So an original versus remake, or more accurately, an original versus remake, because people forget the 50s House of Wax was also a remake.
And hopefully you don't find, but if you do, I am K-Judgmental across the various webs. I will not have a mask on.
Well, maybe he will.
Unless it's a COVID picture, in which case I will have a mask on. During COVID, I was tempted to walk around with this on and see what happens. Go, look, it's a mask.
Put the mask over the mask.
Well, I'm fairly sure I saw you could get Hannibal Lecter face masks.
Yes, I saw that.
That I wanted at one point.
Didn't Boris Johnson just walk around in a Jason mask? That's what he was in trouble for?
No, that's just him walking around in general. There's no mask on. Wow, we're going to get done for political slander. So I'm K-Judgmental in the various places. Film Magazine, I've got up in the last few days a Where to Start with Bela Lugosi, including things that are not drag, even though that's what he's known for. And
did you put Plan 9 on there, Kieran?
I did not. And I may or may not, at some point soon, have a ranking of the Children of the Corn movies. Spoiler, most of them are bloody awful. Although I think you knew that.
You watch them all, so we don't have to.
Yeah, this is just my job at the Film Magazine, watching awful movies so you don't have to. You're welcome. And ranking them by how awful they are.
And you can find me at Jacob Film Guy. I don't know, wherever the internet stuff is. And also, I just have Scorsese stuff. That's it. I was not writing about horror movies because I read like 2 books on the guy, so I couldn't stop writing about him. So yeah, I guess that is it. Go check out down in the description below. We have the link to our Redbubble store where you can probably get some spooky horror movie shirts. And also, you can donate to our PayPal if you don't want to, destroy the world by continuing to take on material objects that you will not use. All right. And that is it. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Happy Halloween!
Woo!